Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to In Defense of the Hays Code. Please pardon the pause, ladies and gentlemen. Your host is a little scatterbrained all the time, not just today. I am your host, Ellis, and this is my co host, Zach. Um, and today, the movie we are bringing to you is the 1936 screwball comedy classic, Man Godfrey. One of, I think, four of the finest screwball comedies ever put to film. And we've discussed the other three, so now here we are.
Okay, so what are the other? You said four.
Mhm. I'd
Uh,
say, sorry, go
in your
ahead.
top four, tell me which ones
The
are your
Thin
favorite.
Man,
Yeah.
Bringing Up Baby,
Mm-hmm.
It Happened One Night, and now My Man Godfrey.
Okay.
Those are the
So
four. Sorry, again, cut you off. Go ahead.
no, it's good. I was just saying. So those are the four of your favorite screwball comedies, and we're about to cover the fourth one.
Right. If anybody was to walk up to me and say, "Hey, Alice, what's a screwball comedy?" I would direct them towards those first four films. Sorry, those four films first, because to
Okay.
me they exemplify the genre. Pretty sure they all came out in the 1930s as well. Yeah.
Well, you've really taught me what screwball comedy is,
Mm-hmm.
and you've done that using these films and then describing them on here on the podcast. Um, and I've seen screwball comedies before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think these are great. Like starter courses, the
Right.
intro to screwball comedy 101.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ones out there that are just as good, but to me, these four are the ones that I'm like, this is quintessentially what a screwball comedy is, what to look for, the type of humor, the actors, because I think there's a certain specific type of actor that tends to be in screwball comedies, or at least a specific type of acting.
Type of acting. Yeah. Okay.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, as my co-host already knows, features not our first returning star to In Defense of the Hays Code, as we found out last week, a couple of weeks ago, however these episodes get structured with um, best years of our lives. But this does feature a returning actor in the form of Mr. William Powell.
Yeah, buddy. Um, so he so people know Jimmy Stewart. People know um Maltese Falcon. Can't think of his name.
Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, of course. I say people know him and then I forget his name. But yes, people know those guys as they should, as they
Mhm.
should know them. But uh, Michael Powell,
William Powell.
William, I keep saying Michael.
Mhm.
Even before we started the podcast, I was calling him Michael. I just want him to be Michael. Can we change his name?
We
Can
can
we
call
just do
him
that,
Bill if that makes it easier.
Bill?
I know a lot of people
Uh,
call him Bill Powell. It
oh,
doesn't quite have the same gravitas, but you know.
that's true, and he deserves gravitas. Okay, so
Mhm. William Powell, yes.
William Powell. I may just call him Mr. Powell, but he has a gravitas. He has a uh, presence on screen
Mhm.
that is uh, different from Bogart and different from Stewart, but at the same time, uh, like when he walks in the scene, you want to know what he's thinking.
Mhm. I think I at one point described him. This might have been in a one of my many failed blogs. This one being a film blog. I described both him and Myrna Loy in the context of the Thin Man as swans. And I think that holds
Swans.
true. Yes, Swans, because he's got, like I said, that gravitas, that sort of he walks as a man with bearing to him. He
Okay.
walks different than like the everyman Jimmy Stewart or the rough and tumble Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, yeah. He's got class.
Hmm.
Um and intelligence. That's what he portrays. He's classy
Hmm.
and he has intelligence. Not
He's
arrogance, but he's confident. He's not gonna try to make you feel inferior, but he's just like when he's on screen, everybody else does look inferior.
hmm
And with screwball comedies, that was also kind
Yeah.
of the point.
Yeah, he does play the role of the quote unquote straight man well, that guy who's just sort of surrounded by all the nuts going, who are you people? Why are you people? Not
Yep.
even who, why?
Why? Yeah.
And I think that really comes across well in My Man Godfrey because the
Mhm.
entire family is bonkers.
They really are. I was man. Okay, so a screwball comedy, there's always that quick back and forth,
Hmm.
puns, jokes. The mom in this, she
Hmm.
doesn't know what's going on. She always answers questions to, and she answers questions that aren't being asked,
Hmm.
and she misunderstands everything that's going on.
Hmm.
Doesn't really care when like big events happen for her daughter. She's just like, oh, that's cool, that's great, yeah, yeah, yeah. And when things go bad, it's like, oh, everything will be fine, everything will be great. With the exception of her protege,
Hmm.
who she's always concerned that he'll be okay.
Well,
Um, Tell me a little bit about proteges.
the term protege, because I know that's kind of an awkward line and doesn't make an awful lot of sense given the context. Um,
Yeah, they talk about it a good bit.
yeah, well, that's because the Hayes Code, as I've stated before, in defense of the Hayes Code, the Hayes Code was something that kind of stepped in and sort of wrung its hands and went, you probably need to change this because it's probably a little more risque than we want it to be. And um it actually affected this movie. I know we haven't really talked about how it's affected the movies we've watched, but in this particular case it has affected this movie
Okay.
because the term protege, not the original name for this man, the term for this man, the original term was gigolo, gigolo, however it's pronounced. Uh-huh.
Really?
Really. And the
And
Hayes Code kind of,
is that how they pitched it?
yes, the Hayes Code screamed, clutched at its throat, and went, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
think
no.
so.
Yeah. No, 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 no.
What?
Yeah. So
So
that's
so the concept drastically changed.
oh yeah.
Um and it wound up being somebody that they um were like mentoring and trying to get them into higher society
Right.
and things like that. But originally it was no nice way to put it, gigolo. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I guess
but
that's the nicest term.
well, yeah. But I mean, just everybody in the movie is just absolutely bonkers. I did want to take a moment, and actually, I did not tell my co-host this. I'm actually officially dedicating this episode to Carol Lombard. Now, I know who a lot of you are what a lot of you are thinking. who's Carol Lombard? And my co-host is going, Ellis, we didn't discuss this. We didn't clear this. I know she was in the movie, but why are you dedicating this to her?
To be honest, I wouldn't have known her name, and I'm looking forward to hearing why you're dedicating it.
Carol Lombard, she played, the name's gone from my memory. She played the younger sister.
The blonde-haired.
Yes, Godfrey loves me. He put me in the shower.
Yes, yes.
Um, Carol Lombard was, as I'm sure this movie showed, a hilariously funny actress. She was also one of, if not the first, U.S. civilian casualty of World War II.
Oh my goodness.
Shortly after, well, not kind of like Pearl Harbor, but shortly after Pearl Harbor, she and a couple other actors and her mom and her press agent and all of them were doing this war bond tour to raise money for the war. And she wanted to get home desperately. At this point, she was married to Clark Gable, who some of you might remember from It Happened One Night.
Right.
She wanted to get home, and so convinced the pilot to fly them home over Las Vegas. They were in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, generally, I've never been to Las Vegas, but there's mountains in that area in Nevada.
Right.
And normally they have spotlights on those mountains to help planes avoid them. But given that, we had just suffered an attack by a foreign navy, they had shut those lights off in order to
Okay.
try to not give the enemy
Draw attention.
right.
Yeah.
So when they flew over Las Vegas in the dead of night, the pilot did not see the mountain. And the plane slammed into the side of that mountain, killing everybody on board, including Carol Lombard.
Wow. So her agent,
Her mother,
her mom.
yeah, several U.S. soldiers.
Yeah.
It said that once he heard about it, Clark Gable, rushed up there and basically had to be restrained from rushing out and just digging through the rubble.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Let's for sure dedicate this. Yeah. To her memory.
Mm-hmm. So that
you're the history man,
yeah.
And history is often tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about her character.
Yes.
Um,
Let's try to make this lighter now that I've taken the mood and just dropped it like a stone.
no, this is good. This is
I promise you,
you
ladies
get
and gentlemen.
background.
Yeah. Well, I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, the movie is a comedy, even if the review isn't.
Yeah. So she participated and brought us this movie. So yeah, let's get into her acting and interactions with William Powell, not Michael.
Right.
And so yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was going to let you discuss that because I do have more background information related to her and William Powell.
Okay.
But I was going to let you talk a little bit about them first, so I'm not over here flapping my jaws the whole time.
Well, that's almost impossible for you not to do.
I know, which is why I'm throwing it at you, going, please.
Yeah.
Take it.
That's why this works, is because we both have big mouths, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched this movie today. First time. And as as Ellis has already said, the family. Well, I'm paraphrasing what he said. They were wilding out. They are bananas. Yeah. So not doing spoilers because we want y'all to watch these movies. They're worth watching. They really are. They're and I hope that y'all have been watching. As these have come out, you've gone out and watched them. Get you a copy, look it up on the streaming service. This movie in particular deals with essentially, I've mentioned it before, that I heard somewhere that every movie, book, TV show has a sermon that it's preaching to you, one way or another. This one certainly does. It's very evident. At the beginning of the movie, there's situations that take place. We're looking at a lot of people who are in severe poverty, and we see a man receive a job with this family, and he becomes their butler, and the young lady who we were referring to earlier, she falls in love with him like that quick. It's a shorter movie than some of the other ones that we've seen. It's about 90 minutes long, and so a lot of things just happen like boom, boom, boom. And so you've gotta with all screwball comedies, you've got to pay attention to what is going down, or you're gonna miss it. There are puns left and right. There are important story twists and turns, not dramatically like in a film noir, not those kind of twists and turns, but more subtle. The family are at each other's throats, and there's one man of reason, which is the dad.
Good old Eugene Pallett, one of my favorite character actors of all time.
And what was his name again?
Eugene Pallett.
Eugene Pallett, and he's a character actor.
Right. Some of you who watch more old adventure films might remember him, if I'm not getting my wires crossed, as Friar Tuck in the 1938 Robin Hood. Where Robin
I think
Hood is...
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. Y'all can IMDb and fact check us in the comments.
Please, that's what I would do in your position.
But yeah, his voice. He's got that deep, distinguished voice. I've seen the Robin Hood movie. It's fantastic. Maybe we'll do a robbing the rich to feed the poor episode later on down the road. But yeah, in this movie, he's phenomenal. Everybody is off the walls, and he kind of comes in, and he's like, "Oh, what is going on?" And there is a great quote from him. I don't think this is a spoiler. This is just kind of a description of his character. But he asks their new butler, Michael. No, not Michael. I'm just kidding. William. I actually did know that. Just seeing if you were still listening. He asked him, have I seen Off lately? And William Powell's character, Powell's character said, not in particularly. And he said, okay, because either I'm crazy or my whole family's crazy, and that pretty much describes where he's at. They kind of are driving him crazy, and so he forms a good friendship with the butler, because he's not crazy either.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, that the blonde haired young lady, she was a great actor in this. To me, she wasn't one of the funnier ones, but I mean, there was times where it was pretty funny. There are certain scenes, if you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I will use the phrase Godfrey loves me. He put me in the shower until you're all screaming at me in the comments. Yes, Alice, we know what that means. Shut up.
You've got to watch it to know what he means, though. He teased that in the last episode.
I love it.
He said that line, and I was like, well, that doesn't sound very Hays Code appropriate. But it is. It's okay.
I just love it because that sums up the movie, I think, entirely. Just that one line. Also, it's one of those things, because you can forget a movie over time. A movie will just fade out of your memory. It's inevitable. But there's
Like
always
Thanos.
certain. Yes, I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't say.
Sorry, that's new movies. We're going old movies. Go ahead.
But there's always going to be certain lines, certain scenes that stick with you, and for whatever reason, out of everything else, in My Man Godfrey, the one thing I can reliably remember is Godfrey loves me. He put me in the shower.
And yet that sums up the excuse me. That sums up the bizarreness of everything going on. Such as, I'm just going to call it the gorilla scene. Man, that's one of those left turns I was talking about. It wasn't necessarily part of the plot, but it was just like, what's going on? And I was laughing and I was confused, and I rewound the scene just to watch it again, because I was like, why and how? And that's exactly what William thought when he walked into the room.
There was a rumor back in the day, it's been disproven, but that there was no script for this film, just a bunch of notes.
Okay.
I mean, again, it's been disproven. People have seen the script, but just it got spread somewhere that this movie had no script. It was just, hey, you just go off this and do whatever.
It feels that way. It feels that way sometimes.
Now,
except for the puns, is what I was going to say. The jokes, you can tell those were definitely scripted. And so, like you said, it's disproven, but there's parts where it feels like, what is this? Where's this going?
Now, here's what I think is the funniest part of the film. That's not an actual scene in the movie. William Powell and Carol Lombard had been married.
Had been or were at the time?
Had been. They divorced like 30 years before the movie came out.
Okay.
But they were at one point married.
Huh. That's interesting. That brings another dimension. And this is why Ellis is hosting this, is because he
has useless knowledge.
He has very useful knowledge for this podcast. And that, with the fact that the chemistry was there
Mhm.
Not like some of our other movies. Not like Thin Man.
No.
There was nowhere near the chemistry there because William was trying to stay out of a lot of stuff. I'll just
Mhm.
say that he was just trying to do his job, and there was just he was kind of a chick magnet.
I think the Thin Man is going to be our golden standard for
I
comedies on this podcast.
I think so. It keeps coming back to me. I know I've said that It Happened One Night was funnier,
Mhm.
but um, yeah, Thin Man is one that is probably I liked it better,
Mhm.
even though the other one was more
Yeah.
situational and just comedic.
Mhm. But yeah, so and actually when they were talking about casting the film, they had William Powell and they were trying to cast the role of the younger sister. William Powell told them, no question, Carol Lombard. Hire Carol Lombard.
Huh. Even though they were divorced.
Hmm. But and again, no spoilers because I'm not going to give anything around this line. But it makes the line spoken later in the film. You would make a wonderful husband for somebody.
Uh
Deeply funnier. It's
yeah,
funny given the context, but it's even
it
more
is.
hilarious. Just like you're saying this to him when y'all were explain.
Yeah, it's like, yep, that's Hollywood.
Mhm.
Holly weird, as I've heard it
Mhm.
called. Um, it's yeah, they're different.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of ways. But yeah, I would give this movie um a 7 out of 10.
Mhm.
Highly encourage people to watch it. Um, if I ever get to a 4, then I'm not recommending it.
Right.
But I don't see that happening because I just enjoy the wholesome, humorous, and entertaining of these older movies. Um,
I hear you loud and clear and challenge accepted. I will present you with a 4 one of these days.
okay,
I will
man.
make it my mission to hunt down the movies I hate the most.
Okay, let's do it.
But I
And
was
then
sorry.
let me say this. And then if I put it at a 4, y'all are probably gonna want to watch it just to see what a really bad movie is.
Mhm.
So either way,
I
you'll probably want to check it out.
I was going to say there's this sort of this character type in screwball comedies I've noticed. You see it mostly in like Bringing Up Baby, and then in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in It Happened One Night, because she is truly Claudette Colbert's character in that film, Ellie, is truly just a lost babe in the woods, just
Right, right,
completely out of her depth. But with the Carol Lombard's character in this, and then with the character of Susan, played by Katharine Hepburn in Bring Up Baby, there's this sort of character I've seen where it's this sort of out there kind of ditzy woman, but who
right.
is also sewing all of these plans that in
Yep.
the end up coming true. That's one thing I'll give this movie over Bringing Up Baby. The conclusion felt more earned.
To the very ending.
Yes. It felt more earned than Bringing Up Babies, which as much as I adore that film, it felt kind of stapled on.
Yeah, the very end of Bringing Up Baby was felt like oh, we forgot to put an ending to it. Let's put an
Yeah.
ending to it. The end of this movie that we're talking about was a shocking ending, and it felt like, to me, it was just like, okay, here it is. Oh, boop,
Yeah.
end of film. And I was like,
Mhm.
no, I, I mean, I get what happened, but it
Mhm.
felt like there was no there was no ending.
Mhm.
It was just different.
Mhm.
Um, when it all all of the crazy stuff, everything that was going on, and then you get to the end, and it's all very spontaneous as her character is,
Mhm.
and then it's just like, okay, that's the way it is. Boom, the end. And when the end came up on the screen, I was like, huh?
That
So
that's one
for
that's one
me,
thing.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I felt like it was if it was earned,
Mhm.
except that it fit with the film.
Yeah.
It's just there wasn't a. I guess I was expecting more of a character arc from her to where she
Mhm.
would become someone a little less like she began. But um, yeah, like I said, it fit with the rest of the movie, and I love the character, um, Mac Powell. I'm just kidding. I
He's doing
Yeah,
this to annoy me, ladies and gentlemen. I approve.
this is correct. um, but yeah, I love what he did at the end of the movie. How he was able to help some of the people.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was phenomenal.
And I've noticed, we talked at the beginning about just the presence William Powell had.
Yeah,
And I've noticed he has a way, like in this movie especially, of just, like I said, incredibly funny actor. But who boy, when he wants to talk down to somebody, he will make you feel tiny.
yeah, yeah. And it's still, from him, it doesn't feel like arrogance. He's just like, here are the facts.
Hmm.
You may really hate the facts, but this is the way it is. And he does. He chops people up.
It's almost incredibly fatherly in some senses.
Yeah, yeah. Just a very wise, and yeah, fatherly is a good term.
Hmm.
Very, very. He brings people back to planet Earth.
Hmm.
Like, people matter. All your stuff, all your ditziness, all your going in every direction except for what matters.
Hmm.
And I love that, because we all need that reminder.
Yeah.
We can be so busy with everything in the world that isn't the most important things.
And see, that's one thing I really love about old movies, and sort of why half the reason this podcast exists, or at least part of the reason this podcast exists, is old movies, even when they were being incredibly funny,
Mm,
they had a message
yeah,
behind them. They meant something.
right.
A lot of the best older movies are remembered, not just because they're funny or because they're this or because they're that, but because they carry this message with
Mm,
them.
absolutely. And it's a good message.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, there's movies today that they all have messages or sermons that they're preaching to you. They're not always good ones. They're Some of them are incredibly immoral. Um, and that's not to say that every movie is like as blatant. Um, like you said, with comedy and things like that. Like, but they all have a tone, a a a value for respecting people,
Mhm.
a value for loving your neighbor, a value for taking the most important things in life serious. Um, and so it's enjoyable for that too. I think we could all learn from movies like this. You know, lessons, and at the same time, I go back to the gorilla scene. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna have fun.
Mhm.
They don't feel preachy.
Mm-mm.
They're just enjoyable, and they're also like, hey, you should also um, care about people.
Mhm. And sort of kind of like what we talked about with the best years of our lives, though we're not going to give this one a full breakdown because uh, that took a lot out of me. uh, this was filmed in 36. This came out in 36.
Okay.
So it was right in the middle of the Great Depression.
Yeah, yeah,
So a lot of the
that makes
stuff,
sense.
the Forgotten Men, all of that, it wasn't something like if it was made today and it was like, oh, we're just looking back at it. No, it was actually happening at
Happening.
that moment.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I I got that feel of it, especially at the beginning during the game. Not to spoil anything, but during the game, there was a feeling of okay, they're talking about something that is a current issue.
Hmm.
Um, and the way people look at the destitute or the poor, um, and how we we can all look at them sometimes as just a statistic,
Hmm.
like that's who they are, but that's not their identity. That's just where they're at, and we're at where we're at, um, and we need reminding to take care of the poor and the orphans and the widows, and that not everything is about pearl necklaces.
Right.
If you watch the movie, you'll understand that reference.
Hmm.
Pearl necklaces was actually a pretty big plot subplot.
Hmm. Even though if I did have to give one criticism to this movie, it's got what I call the only well, if y'all have already seen the episode because we haven't recorded it yet, but we're going to put it out first. You'll hear me talking about this in It's a Wonderful Life. But it's got the same problem of it doesn't matter how much dirt you cake onto William Powell's face, it's still William Powell underneath all that dirt, and you can't really hide that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like, yes, they did a good job portraying, this, but at the same time, it's like he still looks like elegant, stately William Powell.
It's almost like whatever state in life he's in,
Hmm.
he's still him.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. He is who he is.
Mhm.
Um and that's pretty cool aspect of his acting. And I also think intentionally, they showed someone who was not uh super wealthy but still had self-respect, still had morality, values, all of those things that has nothing to do with how much money we have.
And
It's who we are.
and he had just enough vindictiveness to go, "Oh, you're related to her. Oh, you need me. Let's do this."
Yeah. Well, that's where his intelligence
Yeah.
comes in. Like he starts calculating,
Mm-hmm.
and winds up, uh, being a hero as a butler.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we start talking and getting into spoilers, because I smell that on the wind, um,
Right.
just as always, ladies and gentlemen, please watch these films. We don't record these to just hear ourselves talk. We can do that perfectly fine on our own time.
Right.
We don't need a camera. At least I don't need a camera in order to talk, because I'm sure Zach can attest. But please, we record these to bring these movies to your attention, to lay them at your feet and go, no, really, old cinema is good, I promise.
Right.
Please do not take our word on anything we say. Go out, watch the movie for yourself, discover the movie for yourself, become almost close friends with supporting actors because of how many times you see them for yourself. Because I think I've described it to you, Zach. I don't think I've told you. I don't think I've told any of our listeners this. I consider running into supporting actors to character actors sometimes as bumping into old friends, because you never know who you're going to trip over in a movie, whether it's Eugene Pallett or
Alan Hill Sr.
yeah, Alan Hale Sr. But so yes, as always, I am your host, Ellis Womack. And next week, I think we're going to continue to follow Mr. William Powell for at least one more week in rotation,
All right.
before we move on to other things. And event. Anywho, we are going to pay another visit to the Charleses in
Oh boy.
After the Thin Man.
After the Thin Man.
And ladies and gentlemen, I say this with all the sincerity in my heart, and knowing Zach is going to hold me to this, is going to take me to task if this isn't true. I consider this one better than the first.
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, I trust your judgment, but the first one was just, like you said, it was a gold standard. So I'm looking forward to it. I have not seen it yet, folks. So I'm looking forward to seeing it and us discussing once again.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Ellis Womack. This is my co-host, Zach, and all I have is movies and time. See ya.